Hey channel, today we're featuring the McIntosh C31V AV Control Center. It was produced in the late 80s into the early 90s, and it sold or retailed for almost $1,900, which was quite a bit of money back then as it is today. It was one of the earlier remote control volume preamps. Up until that point, most of their preamps had a analog volume control located right about here. In order to accommodate a remote, they had to switch to a digital stepping circuit for volume. And that's what you'll find here, the push buttons for volume up and down and an indicator here to go with it. So it's notable as being the first or one of the first remote control preamps from them. You know, why would you buy this piece? Well, if you like to sit at the couch and use a remote, this was your real only shot at having a vintagey kind of preamp from the 80s and have a volume. If you're the kind of person that likes to walk up to the equipment and will not benefit from a volume control, then you're probably better off with a different unit, maybe a 28 or a C32. Let me go over the features. Aesthetically, it differs from stuff from the period, mostly because of the faceplate design. At this point in time, McIntosh switched over to a half glass front panel. You'll see the top part here is a traditional backlit McIntosh glass, while the bottom is aluminum anodized. The end caps are sort of more modern looking as well. They have sharp corners and are anodized silver. You have a traditional equalizer, which people love about the Mac preamps. This happens to be a 5-band equalizer spanning from 30 Hertz to about 10K. Over to the right, you'll see the balance knob, which is coaxial. It's the first closest to the panel. And then you'll have a loudness compensation for listening at low levels. Flanking the unit, you have two pan locks, so you can secure the unit to a traditional wooden cabinet. And then moving on to the left, we've got your set of inputs. About 7 inputs here, plus the 2 tapes, plus the tape loop. So quite an expanse of inputs. And this would have been one of the early ones to feature an actual CD input, as well as laser, which was the video format used at the time. Let me power it up so you can kind of see how it functions. It's pretty simple. I've got pretty bright lighting, but so you can't really tell right now the tuner LED is lit up. Let's see if I can adjust that for you. Yeah, now you can kind of get a sense. So as you sort of select the inputs, it's reflected by the appropriate writing up top. And then down below, you've got your 2 VCRs, your tape copies, a mono, and then 2 sets of outputs. And I'll go over these in a tiny bit. So it's pretty much broken down into all the inputs up top and then some of the tape loops and other facilities at the bottom. And then there's a headphone jack, which does not have a separate volume control. It uses the main volume control. Now that your unit's powered up, you'll see this sort of LED graph that reflects what volume you've got selected on. So there seems to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 9 steps. Some people complained that that wasn't enough steps. This is a pretty low output volume control, so I think it's probably good enough. While some of their preamps had facilities for about 2.5 volts, this one I think maxes out at 1.7 volts. So you should have pretty good control utilizing the push button. Let's look at the back and see what sort of connections they provided. So if you recall, in the front we had 2 sets of speaker outputs here, speaker 1 and speaker 2. Well, those are connected to these switched outputs here. So if you had a secondary room or a second zone, or maybe 2 sets of speakers in a single room, you'd be able to select which one was activated by the front panel. Following that, we've got the main audio output, and the two tapes, tape 1 and tape 2 outs. Then you've got external processors. This is to run an equalizer or some sort of device needing a tape loop, maybe a headphone amplifier or something like that. And here's a tape loop, and then here are all our analog inputs. There's 9 of them, including the last one, which is a phono with its grounding tab. These 2 sensors would have been used for connecting an infrared receiver, I believe, to be able to put this in a cabinet and still use the remote. And then there's some other features here, or connectors for integrating with other pieces of McIntosh from the era. And about 8 or 9 outlets. Some have switched and some are unswitched. As you can see, this particular unit is housed in a walnut cabinet from McIntosh. It's got a few scratches on it, but it's overall very presentable. So, pretty nice preamp from the late 80s. And a great match for a 7270 or another amplifier. This particular look was covered for only about 10 years or so. So if you wanted to cosmetically match perfectly, you would pick something else from the late 80s, early 90s. So that's it, C31V. Thanks for watching.